Look at this.
And here we go.
Welcome to Wolfe versus Raph. My name is Raph.
My name is Wolfe.
And we are best friends.
Indeed.
We disagree on a couple of things.
A lot.
And one of the things we disagree on is my brother Wolfe's favorite term, snowflake.
One of the favorite terms.
One of many. Your favorite terms.
I also like strawberry.
We're going to talk about both of those things.
Okay.
So I just looked up Wikipedia, which is your favorite research site.
Credible, highly credible
so
site. Yes, of course.
According to Wikipedia, snowflake is a 2010s derogatory slang term for a person, implying that they have an inflated sense of uniqueness, an unwarranted sense of entitlement, or an overly emotional, easily offended, and unable to deal with opposing opinions.
On the nosy.
Yeah, I thought you'd agree with that.
Oh, yes.
So
absolutement.
So
that was French.
Anyway. A lot of people,
yes,
when they hear someone use the term snowflake,
right,
it demonstrates a lack of compassion. And they feel as if their feelings, emotions, experiences even are being belittled by that term. So some people have grievances that they consider to be extremely emotional and warranted an emotional response, and they get called overly emotional and their feelings dismissed by the term snowflake, and it can be extremely offensive.
And does that happen? And is it accurate in what you're characterizing? I would completely agree in some cases. And in some cases, in my opinion, that people have used that to justify and rationalize their overexuberant of emotional reaction and garner attention even, which who knew, versus perspective. And I don't understand that.
So I don't think there's any disagreement that we live in a very contentious, very emotional time.
Highly emotional time.
And there's a lot of sensitivity out there.
Hypersensitivity.
But not all sensitivity is hypersensitivity.
Oh, agreed.
And I think the term snowflake tends to lump everyone who has an issue that they're sensitive about into one group. And so when someone hears, a bunch of snowflakes, particularly when we talk about millennials, when you say, they're a bunch of snowflakes, it dismisses every issue and every grievance they have in one broad stroke.
So can I cop out just for a second here?
Please do.
Okay. So
cop out all you like.
All right. So there are moments where I want to say things like, if the shoe fits, which means if this is you, then own it. If it's not you, why are you getting pissed off about it?
Yeah.
So when does personal accountability override my, cognizant awareness to not offend someone else? Okay, so bear with me for a second. So we have talked on a regular basis the fact that it's very important, and it is, especially for people our size, because we tend to be a little bit, forceful, and I'm the big scary guy, and I've heard it.
I am never forceful.
Yeah. So, and I tend to be conviction, and I say things that are a bit rash at times, okay, and a bit inclusive and a little bit broad stroke and whatnot. But at some point, if you are not that person that I'm speaking of, when does their responsibility to just blow it off if that doesn't apply to them stop?
So you're basically saying that they need to grow a pair. Is what you're saying.
And
so would you agree that there are certain terms that are just inherently offensive? Would you agree with that?
I think they can be. Yeah, of course. I mean, case in point. I mean, if I drop the N-word, duh, hello.
We'll be knocking over furniture.
Of course. And I would never do that ever. But yeah, I mean, we have to, certain things to maintain credibility, Wrath, obviously have to be acknowledged.
Certainly.
I mean,
And so when we use the term snowflake, some people find that to be inherently offensive because it tends to be dismissive. There was a meme going around that basically snowflake is a word that people who are narcissistic and without compassion can use to basically dismiss anyone with emotions, anyone who is sensitive, or basically to denigrate sympathy.
And that is a meme that is used by people who wish to play the victim card.
Not necessarily. I think I've reposted that meme once or twice.
Oh, have you?
And I'm not a f***ing victim. Excuse the F word. Sorry there.
Edit.
It was bound to come out.
Oh, you know it. Yeah, of course.
And see, this is the point where you would normally interject like, oh, well, if any snowflakes are offended by that. And in that context, I would agree with people being, it's just... with people being overly sensitive to words in that word, because that's a common generic slang term that doesn't refer to any disenfranchised groups or anything like that. So in those ways, if someone's being sensitive about me dropping a non-derogatory slang term or a curse word, I would agree that they're being overly sensitive.
Okay, so let's just touch on that for just a moment. We can agree that there is a distinct difference, or not, between sensitivity, genuine, true, real, genuine sensitivity, and hypersensitivity. Is there not a distinction?
Certainly
All
there
right,
is. Certainly there
so
is.
bear with me. So downtown, 36th, my wife, a couple of friends. I'm 50 years old now, okay? So I'm kind of not, with the millennial crowd anymore. Duh, right? I go down there, we go to a dance club. I go outside to have a cigarette, and I'm talking to one of the security guys. And I just had learned some odd years ago about the term snowflake and whatnot. And he goes, oh, don't forget strawberry. I was like, what? And he goes, easily bruised. Okay, keep in mind, folks at home, this is a millennial that told me this. And when he said it, he rolled his eyes. So there are millennial type people out there, when they hear these terms, go, they're legit, and they do accurately describe contrived, attention-seeking victim.
Sometimes. So here. I mean, let me give you a counterpoint to that. Sometimes people are called snowflakes, strawberries, because over the years we have become comfortable with being able to say racist jokes, sexist jokes, homophobic or transphobic jokes. And now that people are being called on it, they are the ones who are getting their egos bruised and are suddenly, oh, you're a snowflake, because they want to be able to continue. No, yeah. I'm telling you.
I agree with you.
I'm telling you, this is. I would say that this is the majority of the use of that term. It says someone going, someone going, oh, well, Airplane was funny, and it's so sad that we can't make that movie today.
Yeah.
Airplane had a lot of homophobic.
Oh my God!
A lot of really racist stuff in it.
I speak jive.
And really racist stuff in it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it wasn't funny.
Yeah, right.
But
it would be inappropriate today.
It would be inappropriate today because that joke is old.
Right.
And the reason why that joke flew back then,
because everybody was tolerant,
is because people were afraid to speak up, and they had no voice to do anything.
They tolerated it
if
because they had no choice.
If you were homosexual, black, you were lucky to get a job, so you weren't going to raise any stink over something like that. If they wanted you to get on camera and jive and so on and so forth, you were like, hey, at least black people are going to be represented in some capacity in a movie. And you took the job because you knew that was going to be a stepping stone to something else.
You're touching on exploitation, and I can appreciate that. All right, so,
but nowadays, now that we have the voice and we can point out and say, no, that's racist. No, I'm not going to do that. No, you shouldn't do that. Now that we're using that voice, and I'm not just speaking of black people, I'm talking black, Hispanic, Asian, gay, trans, women. Now that they have the voice to say that, they're being called snowflakes.
Okay, can we make a distinction here? Because I don't want to ever I can see this going bad real quick for me. For the record, you are my best friend and you are a black man, yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Last time I checked.
All right.
This morning when I looked down, I was impressed. So I consider myself to be 100% black.
Right. So you were there. So I did march in the LGBTQ and hate march. And okay,
we both did.
So
arm in arm.
for the record, ladies and gentlemen, so I do not advocate, and I've actually been violently against any sort of oppression of any group. Even though you're giving examples, I know you were.
And there are examples. You would not be my friend if you were homophobic, transphobic, sexist, or racist in any way. We wouldn't be friends,
of course.
So I don't want to. I definitely don't want to paint that picture of you.
But I do want to make a distinction because it's important. So, a designation that I hear a lot of, and I hear this a lot. Yes, typically by millennials. I feel. And then they state an opinion. So, all right, that is not a feeling. That is an opinion. Mm-hmm. All right, if you want to say a feeling, then your feelings matter to you. Don't expect anybody else to give a damn. All right, but they matter to you. All right,
and that's where it starts to come off sounding unsympathetic.
But it's not. It's not untrue though.
But it does sound like a lack of compassion when you say when you ridicule someone's feelings and lessen them. Now,
or disagree. Why can I just disagree with their feelings?
And I actually agree.
Which are not their feelings. It was an opinion.
Yes.
So if we're talking about feelings, you can't disagree. If you're talking about an opinion, you can disagree. Yes.
Well,
so that's why I think they proactively throw out. I feel and throw an opinion so to as be proactively to counter any sort of opposing view that you have. Well, that is what, in my opinion, is at the core of this whole snowflake thing with me.
So, first of all, two things.
Right.
I don't believe that feelings are unassailable.
You're
I think
wrong.
You can argue a feeling.
I just wanted to disagree.
No. I think you can argue a feeling. If your daughter came home with some guy who was a waste of life, clearly he was basically he was the 17-year-old you.
Who is going to disagree with this?
Well, they were like, but I love him, Daddy. I love him. Of course you would argue that.
That is not apropos to this.
Of course, but listen. So I think you can argue feelings.
Yes, when it comes to that. Yes,
Secondly, I would say that if your feelings relate to some past trauma, hear me out. If your feelings relate to some past trauma, and someone goes, "Oh well, your feelings don't matter. That's not my intention," because sometimes things can be offensive accidentally.
Right.
People can. Triggers do exist. Triggers do exist.
They do exist.
And I don't think that we should automatically dismiss something. Well, I didn't intend to hurt your feelings, so you just need to get over it.
No one is dismissing. I'm simply saying perspective. Get a grip. Pull back a little bit before you lose your shit. You know.
So you just used the S word, and I'm deeply offended by that. It has hurt my feelings.
Well, all right. Well, you'll get over it. You'll heal. Are you triggered?
But here's the thing: triggers are genuine things. Sometimes things do remind you of past trauma.
Yes.
Even soldiers go through it with PTSD.
I know all too well. Yes.
And so I think acknowledging that those triggers exist, that you can inadvertently cause someone to relive a traumatic experience, I think that is just being a sensitive human being.
Yes, of course. But what I'm talking about is not that. I'm talking about, and it's a phenomenon, Psychology Today has written an article about it several years ago. It is a true, accurate psychological dysfunction in the United States right now that is a bad phenomenon dysfunction, meaning people are actually creating, wait for it, they're contriving things like PTSD affliction and cancer affliction in order to garner attention, and it's completely false. It's been proven that people more than history are starting to do this, and the sole motive, and it's offensive to people who actually have legitimate PTSD, which I know.
So I'm going to agree with you here before you go any further. I'm going to agree that sometimes people throw out the word trigger for things
Way too often.
that are not.
Way too often.
Yeah. All they mean is that this makes me uncomfortable, which is not the same thing.
No, not at all.
And or that I don't like that. That's
Right.
not the same thing.
Right.
And I think people throw that out
So now
too
you're
often.
making sense.
So I agree with
Finally.
you on that. I agree with you on that. However,
Took you
I
long
think
enough.
that
We're
we
old.
have a tendency, and by we I mean you.
Yes.
We have a tendency to anyone who has a trigger, or even the word trigger seems to trigger people. Like anyone who has something where they're like, hey, that offends me, our first response is to become defensive because we didn't intend to. And the point is, it doesn't matter if you intended to.
Correct.
If it triggered someone and it caused them
My
to
best
relieve a
intentions
fast-
paved my road to hell.
Exactly.
Of course.
And I think when people throw out the word snowflake, what they're saying is, hey, you got triggered and you got offended by something then when I did not mean to offend you.
Right.
And so you need to just get over that.
Whose
And
fault
that
is
is
that, though?
dismissive.
What's wrong with that?
I think that if you're talking about personal accountability, it needs to go both ways.
Okay, so
to the speaker and the
so
receiver.
what would a healthy person do? Apologize?
Absolutely.
Make amends?
I mean, I
Instead
don't know
of-
what make amends you can do.
You want me to talk about it?
I'm,
Okay,
you know,
so here's the difference. So my bad is bullshit. Okay, so my bad. Sorry. No. Amends is I was wrong.
And
I will do my best to never do it again. What can I do to make it right?
And I think that's a perfectly acceptable and an awesome response.
Right. So if I were not to do that, is it not their still responsibility to take accountability for their part?
So here's the thing. No matter what, they've got to deal with it.
Right.
No matter what, whether you apologize or not,
Right.
they still have to deal with whatever emotions you stirred up with whatever words you said or actions.
Maybe
you
they
took.
saw it on TV or something.
So my point
yeah.
is they still have to deal with it,
Right.
whether you apologize or not. So
Right.
it's not when we say, oh, they're not taking accountability. They do. Because they have no choice, because it's their emotions. So they have no
but
choice.
they do, my
But
good
they have
friend.
no choice to do
Denial,
it.
delusion. Oh, there are many things.
But my point
yes.
is that if they suddenly have a panic attack, let's say, they have to deal with that, whether you apologize or not.
True.
They're gonna have to deal with that.
That's legit, though.
So if you say something that causes them to have a panic attack or something else, relive past trauma.
Whoa. Slow down. No.
You may apologize. You may apologize, but they still have to deal with that.
Wait a minute. I said something that caused them.
Oh, let's not go there.
Did you just
let's
say
not go there.
that I caused someone
I hate
to
this
feel?
argument. I hate this argument.
Really?
I hate this argument.
It's not an argument. It's an impossibility.
No, it is not. It is not. It
in
is
the
not.
psychological
That you are
community,
denying the cause and effect
every
relationship that
single
governs everything in this universe.
psychiatrist, counselor that I've ever talked to, highly educated people, one
Because
human
they're
being
arguing semantics.
cannot cause another human being
They're
to
arguing
feel
semantics.
any. That's not
They're
semantics.
arguing semantics.
No.
The point is
It's
that
accountability.
without the action, there would be no reaction. And that's really the beginning and end of it. So
you're just gonna end it like that,
that's
huh?
the beginning and end of it.
Beginning
We
and
start
end of it.
arguing semantics like, oh, I can't cause you to feel something. Yeah, if you had never said a fucking word.
So that's
excuse
not
me,
dismissive at
if
all.
If you had never said a
Colin,
word, then I wouldn't be feeling this.
My
So clearly
opinion-
there is a causal relationship
My opinion,
there.
based on scientific, factual,
That's not based
psychological
on
information.
scientific. Psychology is, first of all, not scientific. Never has been.
And
It's
that's not
scientific.
dismissive at all. So someone who's talking about me being dismissive just was dismissive to me.
Psychology is a practice.
So don't ever
It is
screw with someone who knows who their enemy is. And I use that term enemy loosely because I don't consider people who are snowflakes my enemy really half the time. So I did really love them, most of them, but not all of them. But you just took an angle that really is to a degree at the core of what you're talking about, though.
So here's the thing. I'm not dismissing. What I'm dismissing is the argument that you cannot, that there's no causal relationship between actions and speech and someone's emotions. Because that's a ridiculous argument.
That's not an argument.
It's you're arguing semantics at that point.
I'm not arguing semantics.
Basically,
you need
if someone,
one indulge me, because you said a lot. I mean, that was some heavy shit. It really was. It was good stuff, though. No, it was serious. Okay. So And you're talking about sort of ish the First Amendment, kind of.
Yeah,
sort of. Yeah, sort of.
Although I'm not advocating for censorship. If that's what you're going.
Really?
No, I'm not. I'm advocating for sensitivity, not censorship.
Okay, so that argument, quote unquote, is arguing semantics. So and we're just going to dismiss it. So scientific proof. So you say
there's no proof. If anything psychological, there is no scientific
do we not have a
proof.
mental health problem in this United States right now?
We have a mental health problem in the world, and it's always been.
Screw the world.
Let's talk
about the U.S.
It's always been. There's no the whole idea that we are suddenly at a crisis point.
We are at a crisis point.
Is ridiculous. We've always had it. The difference is now is our sensitivity and awareness.
Well, it's also 350 million Americans, which is 100 years ago was less than half that.
Yeah.
Right. So statistical, if it's always been there, if we're talking 10%, 10% now is double. I completely advocate feelings and feeling your feelings and owning your feelings. When it goes to the point to where you're looking to not have solution and resolution. So it's when it's taken to an unhealthy, self-centered, self-seeking extreme because you have no social skills. You don't know how to reach out for help. You're just blah.
But maybe that's those things that you talk about are because of the trauma. Maybe that's why they don't have the social skills.
So be
maybe
it.
That's why they don't know how to reach out for help. And the other thing is,
you don't know how to reach out for help?
A lot of people don't. A lot of people do not.
With the internet and everything, self-help, with the awareness. See, when I got sober, there was no internet and self-help and awareness like there is now.
No, I'm
sorry. I'm
telling you that I agree that people should.
Yeah.
Some people have such crippling anxiety.
I agree.
That the idea of going to someone and asking for help
is a struggle. Of course.
And so I don't think they should be dismissed either.
I agree. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the ones who want to waller in the problem, and their freaking problems are not that big in the first place.
How do you distinguish between the two? Who is it who decides which is which? And what is it that gives you the authority to do that?
Well, now you're trying to argue with rational thought and reason, and that's just not freaking fair.
So if you were, listen.
So wait a second. You are not allowed to argue with me with reasonable thought, ration,
so what is
empathy,
the default?
And genuine love in your heart. Okay, that is just not fair. That is a tactic. Flag on the friggin' play.
But now that we're here, I think we're coming full circle now.
Yeah, well, sure. What the hell?
We have some people who are just playing the victim. We have some people.
Far too many.
We have some people that are absolutely have genuine trauma.
Oh yes, big time.
Let's assume for the record that it's 50-50. Okay.
I wish.
Let's assume for the record, what should our default position be? To assume that everyone is playing the victim card, or to assume and behave as if people are genuine victims who need our sympathy and compassion? What should the default position be?
Okay, there's a third option. Not to assume either. To listen.
And then how do you respond is my point. How do you respond?
By listening.
Okay, we can agree there.
And then smell.
We can agree.
And when you smell bullshit, you call bullshit. And you get in solution, because recovery, not every problem can be solved with the sledgehammer. I understand that. And I've been accused of that in the past because I've helped scores of people over the years. So not everybody in recovery or has problems is live or die. And a lot of those people that I've helped over the years, it's live or die. So it's hair on fire. You can't mealy mouth around, all right? So I understand that not all problems can be solved like that. It's not a bad default, though. Let's focus on solution.
But see, listen.
Seek solution. How about that?
So here's what I want to point out to you now. Your solution of listening is not the same as calling someone a snowflake. It is the exact opposite of that. The idea that if someone is traumatized by something, that you sit and listen to them is exactly what I advocate.
Okay, so because you're an intelligent human being, so am I. We've talked to scores of human beings. Okay, when at some point you find out that they're full of shit, you know what? I'm not going to call them on it.
But that's fine. But the default is to listen. That I'll agree with.
And eventually, if they're full of crap, then say, look, stop it. You're not legit. You're full of crap. You know, you need to get on, you know, it's you're not one of those legit people, and you're undermining the legitimacy of the people that genuinely have these problems.
And I agree with that.
People with true, not always, but people with true PSD, from my experience, and I think you would agree with this, and debilitating things typically don't throw it the
So
hang on. They don't throw it up on Facebook or social media. Typically, when I see that, and I'm like going,
but not always.
What is the matter with you?
Because you just said earlier that people should ask for help.
Yes, of course.
For some people, again, people who lack social skills, because I know a lot of people who are, for instance, in the tech industry, who dealing one-on-one with people is traumatizing or uncomfortable for them. They are much more likely to throw it on Facebook than to actually come and talk to you face to face.
So let me bear with me, because that I'm about to agree with you, but on a different tactic. Okay, different point of view. So let them ask for help. Mm-hmm. Let's just not even debate that. Okay. Man, I'm just banging everything. So let them.
That's what she said.
Oh, that's gender bias. Oh, sexism. No, that's a whole other subject. Isn't it? We'll save that for another time. So when they're asking for help, all right, and that's the best they can do, so be it. Mm-hmm. Okay. When someone has for years been either in self-enrichment, enlightenment, and or helped other people. I'm not saying the authority. I'm just saying personal experience for a long time, okay? And can smell where there's smoke, there's fire, and says, look, okay, yeah, but, you know, here's a solution. Let's see you put in the work.
And I don't disagree with that.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
But I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think show compassion, listen, and encourage them to put in the work.
Right. And then when they don't waste my time.
And I would agree with you there.
You would?
I agree with you there.
Oh my God. I love you, brother.
Love you too, brother.
Yep. I wanted to tell you how much just pure joy I got from watching you guys exchange at such a great organic level. Holy smokes, what a great thing. You took a very difficult topic and presented it very intelligently in both ways, and I think that's what Wrath versus Wolf and Wolf versus I think that's what this is all about here.
Absolutely.
Great job, gentlemen. Very nice. Cool.